What I've got next here actually is some zucchini meatballs. Okay, so this again is another dish that would freeze really well. If you have a lot of zucchini in the house, one thing I like to do is grate it up, and it saves space that way. Okay, and once it's grated, you can use it for a lot of different things. This is going to be really good in a frittata. It'll be good, of course, for making zucchini bread or zucchini muffins. You can make zucchini pancakes, like I showed you for the breakfast class. Or you can make more traditional zucchini latkes, which would be like potato pancakes, if you've ever had those. Okay, I actually made those for dinner last night. But this is a good way to sort of get your zucchini prepped and ready to go. And sort of one of the bonuses of doing your zucchini like this is that a lot of the liquid will settle to the bottom of the bag. And for a lot of those recipe preparations, you want the zucchini to be a little bit drained of moisture, and that will help sort of with the texture of your final dish. So just by doing this, it makes it very easy to separate the zucchini from that extra water that's in there. Supermarket zucchini and farm zucchini or farmer's market zucchini usually will vary a little bit in moisture. The stuff that you get from your share or from the farmer's market is going to have a little bit more water in it just because it's a lot fresher and it hasn't had time to dry out. Okay, so that's why it could affect the texture of that final dish. But what I've got here is just in case you don't have a chance to grate it up ahead of time, like I did. For this particular recipe, I do saute the zucchini first and cook out any of that extra water. Okay? And that's going to help ensure a really nice final product as well. So I'm just got a little bit of olive oil in this pan here. Okay, not a whole lot because you don't want it to be too greasy. And I'm going to put a little bit of garlic in there. That's about a clove of garlic or so. If I were making this just at home for my husband and I, I'd probably put in 2 cloves. But, you know, we don't need too much. And then once the oil starts getting hot, and you know it's hot because as soon as you put that zucchini in, it sizzles. Okay? So again, this is going to help sort of regulate the moisture that's in this zucchini. And it'll take about 6 or 7 minutes for that moisture to cook out, and you'll see it. It collects on the pan, and then it eventually evaporates. And once you have that going, you can season it with a little salt and pepper, okay? And then you use sort of traditional meatball seasonings. And what I've got in here is some panko breadcrumb. Are you all familiar with panko? Okay. So if you're not, it's a special Japanese breadcrumb. It does have a little bit of a different texture. It's a little crisper. It's actually made from like, there's a little bit of sugar in there, there's a little bit of salt, so it's got a little bit of seasoning in it, and it tends to create sort of, I don't know, I like the texture of the product a little bit better than just regular breadcrumbs. You can find them in any grocery store. It's also got some grated Romano cheese, an egg, and a little bit of Italian seasoning, and a little bit of crushed red pepper, and then salt and pepper to taste. And once you've got your zucchini sauteed off, and I already have a little bit of zucchini in here, you mix it all together, and you let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. And that sort of, again, helps the texture of your meatballs, helps your meatballs sort of stick together a little bit more, because you don't want them to fall apart in the oven or if you decide to cook them in sauce. And once you've got that all together, it makes a really nice sort of little meatball dough. Okay. Again, this could be done with eggplant. I've done something similar with kale. This has a little bit more texture and a little bit more toothsomeness to it. And you would make just little walnut-sized meatballs like this. Thanks. I'm going to go on and check that oven. Yeah. So you can see how those puff up. They look nice, right? I'm not going to tip it too far because I don't want it to spill all over the place. But that way, it's just another way that you'd be able to present that to the table. Okay? You can see that there's a little bit of liquid already collecting on the bottom of that pan. And since this zucchini has drained quite a lot, it's not going to get too much more water out of it. So I'll go on and turn that off. And then, of course, you would let it cool before you added it to the rest of the ingredients, just so it's not difficult to work with. Okay? And you would just put these on a lined sheet pan. I like to use parchment paper, but of course you can use aluminum foil if you like, or just spray the pan with a little bit of pan spray. And then these bake in the oven for about 20 minutes at a 375-degree oven. They'll get nice and brown on the bottom. Then you just flip them over, and they'll cook for another 10 or so minutes. Once they're cooked like that, you can saute them with a little bit of tomato sauce. You can serve them plain. You can even make like a little bit of a meatball sandwich with this and some cheese on like an Italian bread or on a ciabatta roll or something like that. Once they're cooked, they also do freeze really well. What I would do with these is freeze them individually on a cookie sheet first, okay, until they're frozen, and then put them in a Ziploc bag so you would be able to have those for later on, okay? And what I've got here, I made just a really quick tomato pan sauce. So this is a little bit of a chunkier sauce. So there are chunks of tomatoes in there. But, oh, I meant to put cheese on there. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm not sorry.
Sorry, guys.
An important part.
It is. This is just a grated Romano. And I'll tell you, I posted these on social media. I've probably had, I don't know, 6 or 7 people ask me for the recipe on these. Not really, they just looked really good in the picture, I think, but they taste really good too. So you can use your fork if you need to. The toothpick is just for ease. But they almost look like a chicken meatball or a turkey meatball, but they're totally vegetarian.